I really like making macarons inspired by different things that I see and try. So one macaron I wanted to make was inspired by a sprinkle donut from a local bakery in Minneapolis. And I made first some brown butter donuts. You can see that tutorial. And then also I took the sprinkle cake donut and I thought, what if I'm not just inspired by it, but what if the literal donut is in the macaron? So I've done something similar to this before, but I wanted to put it into a ganache this time. And because I just wanted the cake flavor and the cake part of the donut itself, I took some cream, I put the donut into that, and then I let it infuse overnight. The sprinkles and like the sugar glaze coating I didn't really need, but you could leave that in there too if you wanted. Now you have two options here. You can either emulsify all of this together for a really strong donut taste, or you can strain out the donut bits, or honestly, a mix of both. Emulsify, then strain it out. Otherwise, I'm proceeding just like normal for my white chocolate pastry cream style ganache, but I'm using that donut cream for both parts of my cream. Again, this is something that you could do just like donut infused cream, or it can be the literal donut cream if you want. Just know that because there is donut in here, we have a lot more components that are going to thicken up really quickly. So as I go through this exact same process that I normally do, it's starting off really thick and it is going to get even thicker. So this is going to thicken up really quickly, way faster than my normal pastry cream style ganache. So I am still using cornstarch because I want to achieve that really silky, smooth, strong texture in my final ganache. So even though the donut and the flour and all of that from the donut is going to lead to a really thick ganache, it's fine. I'm still keeping the cornstarch. Then I will just temper in that cream into the cornstarch and cream, and then I will cook until this is really thick. Again, it's going to go really fast, so do not walk away. Stand right there and whisk constantly after this is tempered together. I think you can use any donut you want, and if you avoid something like gluten or dairy or whatever it is, you can adjust all of these things accordingly, okay? So you can use a gluten-free donut. I have used things like coconut cream, so if you have like a dairy-free donut that you want to use, if you have your substitute cream or whatever it is, you can still do this exact same process. I would say though, if you use a more standard basic chocolate ganache recipe, the ratio of chocolate is a lot higher, and so it will be harder to taste the donut itself if you use that much chocolate. So one reason I really love this pastry cream style ganache is because there is a pretty small amount of chocolate in it, and so that allows whatever other flavors to really shine, to really come to the forefront, and you're not fighting or competing to have the dominant flavor. So here the donut kind of comes a little bit more forward and steps into the kind of focal flavor there instead of just a chocolate ganache with a bit of donut. After that donut cornstarch cream has thickened up, and as I mentioned, it's really thick, I'm going to put it over my white chocolate. And because especially this cream is so thick, it doesn't look super attractive and appealing and delicious right now. I promise it will be. But I did go ahead and pre-melt most of the way my white chocolate chips so that it would be a lot easier to incorporate later on. I'm going to do the same thing as I always do. I'm going to give this a really good stir, and then I'm going to let it sit for 10 to 20 minutes to let it cool down a bit before I add in my butter. And at that point, I will switch to my immersion blender to emulsify in the butter. As you can see, it's really thick. It's really, really thick. Adding in the butter is going to help kind of smooth everything out a bit. It is still a thick ganache, but it is going to be really lovely to pipe, and it is so creamy. Honestly, it's an amazing macaron ganache, especially for a donut-inspired macaron, and especially if you have a local bakery that has a donut that you are obsessed with and you want to squish into macaron form. I like to pour my ganache into a plastic wrap-lined sheet pan. That is because this allows me to have a lot of surface area, and then it will cool down faster. If you are not using this ganache the same day, or even if it's going to be many hours, still let it cool completely to room temperature before you stick it into your refrigerator, unless it's like an absolute emergency and you like need to use it as quickly as possible. Then, I guess do it at your own risk, but personally I prefer to cool it down to room temp, then get it into my refrigerator. For the macaron portion of this adventure, I am just using a standard French method here, room temperature egg whites. I've gotten my mixer. I'm going to be coloring these brown. Again, I'm going for like a donut. I want this to look like that sprinkle donut that I was inspired by. This, I am using 200 grams of egg whites here. So if you're thinking, wow, that looks like more than you normally show in your videos, it is. This is a little bit bigger batch. I am going for a brown macaron, and for some reason, I haven't found a single brown that I'm obsessed with, and so I usually prefer to mix the chocolate brown gel food colorant from AmeriColor and the true brown food coloring powder from the Sugar Art. I don't know what it is. I feel like some browns are like too red, and some browns are too yellow, and some browns are just, I don't know, they lean in different directions. And so personally, I love mixing browns together. It seems like it is more what I want from my macaron, but you can do whatever works best for you. After I get a really stiff peak there, I'm going to transfer my meringue to a larger, wider bowl so I can add in my dry ingredients. As always, I'm adding in those dry ingredients and about 3 additions, mixing to combine, making sure I don't have any pockets of ingredients. And then I'm going to continue on to the macaronage process to deflate the air and get to a ribbon stage where the batter flows down from my spatula like a ribbon and back into the bowl. Now, for some people, their perfect texture for macarons in their kitchen with the recipe they're using, there are so many variables. It might be a little bit thicker or it might be a little bit thinner than what you see for mine. So as always, if what I'm doing or if my the thickness that you see in my videos for my macaron batter and all of that, if it doesn't work perfectly for you, it's okay. It's normal even. So you might need to do some trial and error of your own to see what is perfect in your kitchen and for you. So you have a couple of options. Once we get this macaron batter, all the dry ingredients incorporated, and then to that perfect state of our texture, you can, for a donut macaron, pipe in a couple of different ways. You can either pipe in like O's, so it looks like a Cheerio or a donut, right, where there's actually a hole in the center. You can do that for both the top and the bottom shell. You just have to remember that that means usually less filling because you have a hole in the center. Another option that I think is really common for donut inspired macarons is to have one regular circle for the bottom and then one donut round hole in the center shape for the top, and then you can have a little bit more filling and still have the really intense nod to this being a donut macaron. One more option is to just pipe regular circles just like you would for any other regular macaron shell, and then to use something, royal icing, chocolate, whatever it is, to create the appearance of a donut just by kind of having that squiggly, classic, glazed donut sort of shape on the top. So really things to consider are how much time do you have? Are you new to piping things that are not just regular macaron shells? Do you want to add in a lot of filling? Do you want this to look more like a macaron or more like a realistic donut? And whatever that end result answer is, that's okay. You go with that design. So after I get this macaron batter macaronaged and we go on to that next piping step, just know that for a really fantastic final result donut macaron, you still have a lot of options and you can pick what is best for you and your kitchen. For me, I am just going to pipe regular circles today. I'm not going to do that ring. If you want to see how I would do that, check out my other donut macaron video where I made brown butter donut inspired macarons inspired by this same donut shop in Minneapolis. And you can see how I did one regular shell for the bottom and one kind of donut Cheerio ring shape for the top. But today I'm going to pipe all regular circles, bake them like normal, everything like normal, and then I'm going to use royal icing to give the appearance of a donut. So I'm going to pipe all my trays, tap them, let them rest. Usually for me, that's about 20 minutes in my home kitchen. I'm just letting a nice skin form on those, and I'll bake them in my oven. For me, I like to do about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 148 degrees Celsius for anywhere from 16 to 18 minutes. If you are baking something like a ring or that O, because there is less macaron batter, it is likely that that is going to take less time to bake than just these regular circle macaron shells. So if that is something you're doing, I really recommend keeping those O's or rings on a separate tray than the bottom part here, the regular circle, and then baking it for a little bit less than you would the rest of your macaron shells. For the royal icing decoration, I just have very standard royal icing. I usually use a meringue powder and then just water and powdered sugar for my royal icing, but there are so many great recipes out there. You can use whatever you prefer. And then I'm using it fairly thick, so it's pipeable, and I'm able to kind of shake it a little bit and get it to drip just the tiniest bit to the sides or kind of flow a little bit. But I don't really want it to go anywhere because I want it to stay more or less in the shape I've piped, and then I'm going to get all of those sprinkles on the top to mimic the donut that I bought from the donut shop that I went to. You can use whatever sprinkles you want. Again, I was kind of mimicking this very standard cake donut with just rainbow sprinkles on the top, but whatever sprinkles or things that you want to do, or if you want to do a glaze, you can check out the brown butter royal icing glaze I made on my brown butter donut inspired macarons. There are really a lot of options. As you can see though, it's really pretty easy to just use royal icing to create kind of a donut shape on top of the macaron, even without having that hole in the center. And then this allows you to have a lot more filling on the inside. And because I wanted a ton of that donut ganache on the inside, that's kind of what I was going for. So this worked out really, really well for me. You can, of course, do this same method if you have a hole in the center of the top macaron shell. It works just the same, just pipe that squiggly royal icing line around the outside of that. If you are new to working with royal icing, I do have a couple of videos you can check out for royal icing for beginners, especially when you're putting it on macaron shells. The most important thing to keep in mind is that you do want to let this fully dry and harden before you fill your macaron shells and get them into your refrigerator. So make sure that you've given this at least an hour or two just on your counter, if not longer, before you get in there with your donut ganache. Look at how thick and creamy this ganache is. Everything is looking amazing. My royal icing has dried and it's time to fill my macaron shells. Now, because I've chosen the design of 2 regular circles for my macaron shells, I do not have to pipe any differently. If you do have a hole in the top shell though, just know that the way I'm piping right now probably wouldn't be a good idea because the ganache that's kind of poking up there in the center would go straight through the hole in the top macaron shell. So if you are piping with a donut macaron that looks more like a donut and it has that hole in the center, you might want to just pipe 1 ring around the outside and call it a day, which again is probably going to be less ganache, but still it will be delicious. These can go into your refrigerator to mature, usually ganache filled macarons after 24 hours. They are good to go, ready to dive in. Don't worry, the royal icing is not going to cause any difficulty or any problems with that maturation process. They will mature just like normal, and it will give you just the tiniest little crunch on the top, which is a really fun addition, especially when you have a ganache filled macaron that has a lot softer texture inside. That additional crunch on top from the royal icing and the sprinkles is really great. Thanks for coming on my donut macaron adventure. If you give it a try, make sure to tag me on Instagram at Maddie Brame. You can also find me on TikTok at Macarons by Maddie. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye!